Hello Red Case listeners, welcome back to our channel that discusses true crime stories that really happened around the world. We hope that you are all in good health and kept away from danger. Let's dive into today's haunting case from Pakistan, a case that not only shocked a nation, but also raised disturbing questions about justice, law enforcement, and the dark corners of society. Lahore, Pakistan, December 30th, 1999, a quiet winter morning in the bustling heart of Punjab. But something eerie was unfolding behind the red bricks of an ordinary-looking building on Ravi Road. At the local office of a Lahore newspaper, an envelope arrived. It wasn't from a politician or a public figure. It was a confession. A letter from a man claiming to have killed 100 boys, most of them runaways, beggars, or children lost to the streets. The letter was signed, Javed Iqbal. Within hours, newspapers began to buzz. Reporters were stunned. The Lahore police were alerted. At first, they thought it might be a hoax, a twisted joke. But the letter was detailed. Too detailed, and then, just as Javed had promised, the police arrived at his house and discovered a scene that could only be described as the stuff of nightmares: plastic bags, bottles of acid, torn clothing, shoes of children, photographs, and most hauntingly, his diary. The diary chronicled everything. Born in 1956, Javed Iqbal Mughal was not someone you'd expect to make headlines for one of the most horrific serial crimes in Pakistan's history. He came from a wealthy family. His father was a successful businessman, and Javed himself owned a spacious home, drove expensive cars, and often portrayed himself as someone concerned about the poor and the helpless. He ran a business, and interestingly, he even started a youth rehabilitation center, a place he claimed would help homeless boys get off the street. But underneath the carefully constructed image was a disturbed, complex man. Many say the system failed to monitor his activities. Some even allege that his wealth shielded him for years from any form of scrutiny. His neighbors found him quiet, reserved, and polite. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, and he kept to himself, but no one knew what was going on inside his house. Javed didn't prey on rich families. He didn't abduct children from elite schools or posh neighborhoods. He targeted runaway boys, street children, and orphans, the ones who had no one to report them missing. In his confession, he wrote that he chose those whom society had already forgotten. That line alone sent chills through the nation. He would lure them with food, warmth, sometimes even with promises of shelter and safety. But once they entered his home, there was no going back. According to his own words, after killing the children, he would dissolve their bodies in acid. The remains were then flushed away or thrown into the nearby river. In the diary, he even listed each child's name, age, and how he found them. Besides some names, he scribbled smart, innocent, silent, brave. It was as if he thought of himself as some sort of collector, a collector of lost lives. As the investigation deepened, so did the mystery around his motives. In his own writings, Javed claimed that he had once been wrongfully arrested and beaten by the police. During that period, he claimed to have been deeply humiliated and decided to punish society in return. He wrote, "These children were already discarded by society. I only completed the process." He wanted to show how easy it was to commit crimes when no one cared, a twisted mission of revenge, he called it. Junko was taken to the Minato residence, the home of Shinji Minato. At first, they forced her to call her parents and say she had run away and was safe with friends. It was a lie designed to buy time, because what came next was unthinkable. For 44 days, Junko was held captive. She was kept in a room upstairs, hidden in plain sight. The parents of the Minato household knew, and they chose to look away. Afraid of Hiroshi and his gang, they let the nightmare continue under their own roof. Junko was tortured in ways we cannot fully describe, but it is crucial to say, she was strong, she tried to escape, she cried for help, she pleaded, but she was ignored, mocked, and brutally silenced. But then, in January 2000, just weeks after the letter was first received, Javed Iqbal walked into the office of Daily Pakistan, one of the country's major newspapers, calm, composed, and chillingly unrepentant. He said, "I am Javed Iqbal. I surrendered. I have completed my mission." The country stood still as headlines broke. Javed Iqbal turns himself in. At the Daily Pakistan newspaper office, journalists and police were stunned. This wasn't the terrified, guilty man they had imagined. He was calm, cold, even smiling at times. He told the reporters, "I promised I would surrender after 100 children. I kept my word." He handed over more diaries, more letters, and even photo evidence. He said, "I have done what your authorities failed to do. These children were begging on your streets. Forgotten. I gave them an end." His tone wasn't sorrowful. It was rehearsed. Disturbingly logical, the police immediately took him into custody. News cameras captured him walking into the station, flanked by officers. No resistance. No struggle. Behind bars, he was questioned for hours, days, weeks. Investigators were horrified by his lack of remorse. One officer would later say, he spoke as if he had done the country a favor. The diaries became the centerpiece of the investigation. Each entry was written in Urdu. The writing neat. The tone cold and detached. He listed names, ages, where he met the child, what the child said, how long they stayed in his house, and how they were killed. He included brief comments. Words like, "cried a lot," "didn't understand what was happening," "felt like my own son," "panicked." The boys knew they had to get rid of the body, so they stuffed Junko's remains into a 55-gallon drum, filled it with concrete, and abandoned it in a waste area in KT, Tokyo. They went back to their lives, as if nothing had happened, but justice, as slow as it was now on its way. It all began to unravel when Hiroshi Miyano and Joe Ogura were arrested for a completely unrelated case, the abduction of another girl, a girl who, by some miracle, survived. When police interrogated the boys, something felt off. They suspected more, and when detectives mentioned the unrelated missing person case of Junko Furuta, Hiroshi panicked. He thought his friend had confessed, and so, he confessed too. In Parliament, lawmakers were visibly emotional. The case reached the highest levels of government. Everyone wanted justice, but justice for 100 children wasn't going to be simple. There were calls to investigate how such a man was allowed to operate freely for so long. Many wondered, where was law enforcement during those years? Some claimed they had reported missing children but were ignored. The pain was turning into rage. In 2000, Javed Iqbal stood trial. He wore plain clothes. No lawyer dared defend him. Eventually, a state attorney was assigned. But even he looked visibly shaken. The courtroom was packed. Families of victims sat side by side with journalists and activists. The prosecution laid out overwhelming evidence. Eyewitness accounts, forensic evidence, photos, and, of course, the handwritten confessions. Javed remained silent most of the time. He only spoke to say, "I accept the charges. I did what I said I did." The judge took only a few days to reach a verdict. On March 16, 2000, the judge announced the sentence, quoting Islamic law. The judge declared, "You shall be strangled to death in front of the parents whose children you killed. Your body shall be cut into 100 pieces and dissolved in acid, just as you did to your victims." It was a symbolic sentence, meant to reflect the gravity of the crime. The nation cheered. For once, it seemed justice would mirror the horror of the offense. But rights groups intervened. They claimed such a punishment would violate human rights treaties. International pressure began to build. In response, the Pakistani government hesitated. Eventually, they reversed course, stating that Javed Iqbal would be executed by standard hanging, but the story didn't end there. In October 2001, just days before the scheduled execution, news broke. Javed Iqbal was found dead in his prison cell. Alongside him was another inmate, his alleged accomplice, Sajid. Both were hanged using prison bedsheets. The official cause of death? Suicide, but many weren't convinced. How could the country's most high-profile prisoner be left alone? Where was the security? Some believed it was an inside job. That perhaps someone didn't want him to speak further. Or maybe, families of victims had found their own way of justice. Others believed he killed himself to escape the public execution he feared. To this day, no one knows the full truth. The Javed Iqbal case left deep scars in Pakistan society. It sparked major reforms in child protection policies. Hotlines were created. NGOs received more support. Laws were revised, but critics say not enough has changed. Street children still wander unattended. Law enforcement remains underfunded. And the social stigma surrounding abuse cases prevents many from coming forward. The haunting truth remains: Javed Iqbal operated in plain sight. For years. With wealth. With resources. And with no oversight, he didn't hide in shadows. Society just chose not to look. What do we learn from the Javed Iqbal case? It's not just the story of a serial killer. It's the story of systems that failed, families, police, the courts. A story of children who were already abandoned before he ever found them. It's a reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes, they wear normal faces, live in nice houses, and speak with calm voices, and it's a warning that justice delayed can sometimes be justice denied. Thank you for listening to Red Case. We'll continue to shed light on stories that should never be forgotten. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below if this story moved you. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always speak up for those who can't.